Hi there, and welcome to Claris Engage 2020. My name is Luke Rochester, and in this video session, I'm going to show you how you can talk to Siri about the impact that COVID-19 is having on your business. Now, I've got this terrible Aussie accent because I'm a surfer in Australia. If I had my choice, I'd be surfing a lot more and doing management consulting a lot less. But it pays the bills, and this year it's coming quite handy. I've focused predominantly for many years on supply chain intelligence, and I'm happy to say that I'm being able to help a few businesses this year try and keep their head above water while they face unprecedented challenges to their supply and demand thanks to this global pandemic in 2020. I started out as an engineer and then went off and studied psychology, and I am the owner of one business app. I've covered that in previous sessions at DevCon, so I won't be talking too much about that today. What I would like to do though now is tell you a little bit more about what we'll be covering today. Well, hi there. I'm going to start by addressing the elephant in the room. This video is being recorded in the year 2020, which unfortunately will always be remembered as the year we had a global pandemic. Now, I'll be honest with you, this session proposal went to Claris before COVID had hit. So my initial intention was to show you how you can talk to Siri about your business. Well, I'm going to kind of stick with that idea. However, since about February, March this year, I've been inundated with calls from my clients to help them manage their supply and demand. In the past, it's been something I've done where I've helped clients kind of tweak their supply and demand to get a few cost savings. But this year, it's a whole new ballgame. These days, it's all about survival, helping companies survive through what is an absolutely unprecedented challenge for anyone trying to manage their supply and demand. So I've decided today that I am going to show you how you can talk to Siri about your business and about the risks that are coming along with the COVID-19 crisis. So I'm hoping that the main thing you'll learn is how you can program Siri, or in fact any digital assistant, any chatbot, to basically integrate with your solution so that you can create these wonderful things called conversational user interfaces. And what that means is the user can just sit there and have a bit of a chit chat. And as that discussion is taking place, whether that's with a third-party tool coming from Google or Apple or any of these other providers that have got these chatbots now, or, and indeed what I'll be doing today is showing how you can build your own chatbot into FileMaker, so just using FileMaker tools. Now the reason for that is not necessarily that I think you should go and build your own chatbot, but I think if you have a crack at just building your own prototype, you really understand the fundamental basics, the way nouns, verbs, adjectives work, the finer areas of synonyms, that's all handled really well. A thing called small talk where you can just have a chit chat with a chatbot, that's also handled really well by these off-the-shelf chatbot solutions. What they don't do so well is delve and integrate in with your own internal data that's inside of your database. So that's what I'll be focusing on today. I'll show you how you can have a chat to Siri about data in your Claris FileMaker solution. Now, with the advent of Claris Connect and all the wonderful things you can do with JavaScript and all the cool stuff that's been happening with Core ML, you can certainly integrate all sorts of wonderful things into your application. And in fact, you can look at past sessions that I've done at DevCon where I talk about artificial intelligence and indeed connecting to third-party chatbots. I did a session with Johan Hedman where we connected to Google's API.ai, which is now called Dialogflow. So there's plenty of sessions out there, and of course there's other sessions you can see to hear about Claris Connect and the JavaScript stuff that's going on. Indeed, Core ML, there's a few sessions on that as well. So I'm focusing on something very specific today. It's how do you build a conversational user interface directly into your solution? And again, you can switch out your chatbot and plug in a third-party one without any problems. But I will focus on that today. However, as I mentioned, I am going to try and kill two birds with one stone. I don't want to just focus on chatbots, given the year that we're in and the year that we're having. Indeed, up until last year, I was spending a lot of time working with artificial intelligence and having a lot of fun helping managers and execs manage their whole business with one app, having all their KPIs in the palm of their hand, predicting performance. And this was kind of like the world of AI and BI that I'd been engaged in up until COVID hit. Now I'm basically relying on my engineering skills and my supply chain experience to indeed help companies try to manage supply and demand so that they can survive. It's no longer about tweaking and thriving in the industry, about beating competitors. It's about just keeping your head above water to get through all of the issues that have come from the global pandemic. So it's my hope today that you will indeed find out about how chatbots and how you can get Siri to read through your FileMaker solution, or even an Excel spreadsheet. Pump the data into FileMaker and away you go. You can have a chat with Siri about your Excel spreadsheet. So I think there's some very interesting impacts that will come from a whole bunch of Claris and FileMaker developers out there knowing how to build Siri into their application. I'm looking forward to you sending me some of the great stuff you've all built. And the app that I'm going to be demoing today will be completely free to download. You'll have admin access. You can pull it apart, do whatever you like with it. I like talking to people, so do feel free to contact me with any questions or comments. Without any further ado, I think that's enough of this personal intro. Let's get down to business and get onto the stuff that you're here to see. Let's crack open FileMaker and have some fun with Siri. Thanks for watching the session. Let's have a look, shall we, at what it's like to have a chat with Siri about your business. So we might start with something like, "Hey Siri, how is my business performing?" So what's happened there is an iOS shortcut has been triggered based on the phrase we just used. And that shortcut has told the iOS shortcut to go and open up our app that we built with Claris FileMaker, and we're running it through FileMaker Go on an iPhone. Not only has it opened the app, but it's taken us to an appropriate area within the app. So in this case, it's saying, or Siri's saying, hey, these are the biggest threats to the business. So it's got 5 of them. Now you can imagine in many companies, it might be more than 5. It could be hundreds or even thousands. And what you could do is scroll through to try and find the one you're after, or you could do a find and type some text in. But it's even easier if we can just continue having a chat with Siri, but not through the shortcuts. In this case, we want to have a bit of a free-flowing discussion with Siri from within inside the app. And here's how that would look. I'm going to tap on the chat bubble at the bottom, and you can see the last item there on the screen is a small clear widget. I'm going to ask her about that, and when she realizes it's only one specific item that I'm asking about, she won't show me the list that we're seeing at the moment. She'll go straight to the chart view because there's only one item to show us. So this ability for Siri or the chatbot to show you different layouts based on the conversation is an example of what they're calling in the industry a conversational user interface. So it's a great way to allow the user to have a very natural way of interacting with your application. But it's also very powerful because you can be accessing hundreds or thousands of records. So let's give it a shot. Let's try and ask her about one specific item here. So Siri, I'd like to know more about that small clear widget. And there we go. I'll go in landscape mode so we can see a bit easier. So what we're seeing here is this small clear widget. We're seeing the big blue dots are demand, so it's like the sales happening every month. And the area plot behind it is the inventory that we've got. So the darker area plot towards the left is the actual inventory, and the lighter shaded area to the right is the predicted inventory. And as you can see, it's crossing over the x-axis. In other words, it's going out of stock in a few months' time. And that's why Siri had this on her list of threats to the business. Now we can show supply here, and this is probably not that uncommon for a lot of businesses. What we've got is a fairly consistent supply, so you've got a factory that can produce a certain amount every day, and then you've got the demand jumping all over the place, and the inventory is the resultant. Now that's an example if you're selling products, but there's a similar theory here for service-based businesses, where what you could be seeing here, instead of the columns representing factory output, it could be representing the number of hours you can bill. So you've got consultants that do billable hours, they've got certain skill sets, so you have capacity to provide certain services. And the demand you've got coming in could be for those services or for other services. So your demand still looks similar to if you're selling products, Rather than it being inventory, it could be billable hours. The difference between your demand and your supply or your capacity could still be showing similar things to what we're seeing here on this chart. Now let's continue on with our discussion with Siri now that we're inside the app. I'll go back to portrait mode, tap back in here, and this time I'm going to ask about all of our threats. Hey Siri, show me all the threats again, please. Here they are back in list mode. If I tap on one of these instead of asking about a specific one, we get to see that threat. In this case, here's another item that's going in and out of stock. So it's a seasonal one. The demand, as you can see, has got some peaks in it, and the inventory is going out of stock and then back into stock. But we can look at, by doing a double finger swipe on the screen, we can look at the next item, which is also a threat. We can see it's going out of stock. Double finger swiping again, and there's back to our small clear widget that we're looking at before. So this kind of combination of being able to talk to Siri about your data and tapping and swiping the screen is making for a very easy and very kind of natural interaction with your application. We might even ask Siri about something more optimistic. Okay, Siri, I need to be cheered up. Show me some opportunities. And she's found a few opportunities for us. Let's tap on the first one to see what that is. This is showing us that instead of going out of stock, we've been in and out, but we've got enough production going on that we've got a massive amount of stock coming up in the future, so we can run some campaigns and convert some stock into cash there, which is an opportunity. And if I go the correct way, we can see another opportunity here where our stock is increasing in the future. So we've got these different ways of interacting with our application. We can do normal, poking on the screen, as is with most iPhone apps. You can type text if it's a noisy factory that you're working in. Instead of actually speaking there, you can just tap into that box, and it's just as easy. You can start typing away inside the box, or you can speak, or you could even link it to some frequently asked questions that people in the business are asking. So there you go. That's my demo of how you can interact with Siri to navigate through your application. What I'm going to do in some of the remainder of the videos is show you how you can build this yourself. So I've got a demo app which is free for you to download, and you can pull it apart and do whatever you like with it. I'm going to show you some videos now on some of the things you need to keep an eye out for, and we'll go under the hood and look at how all this is working. All right, in this video we're going to look under the hood. Now, if you're anything like me, you're probably going to fast forward this video and just pull the file apart, and that's how you learn, and that's fine by me. But I'm going to spend a few minutes just giving you a bit of a tour of what to expect once you're in there, and maybe explain some of the things that are a little bit kooky and not perhaps that straightforward when you're building some of your normal run-of-the-mill FileMaker solutions. So let's have a look at the chatbot specifically. So if I click on this bubble and I come into here and I type something like, hey Siri, show me some threats in my business. So that's the kind of general kind of sentence or statement we might have used in the demo video earlier when we're having a chat with Siri. So if we click on go, she's worked out, she's telling us what we just said. So hey, here's what I found regarding, hey Siri, show me some threats in my business. And what we've got there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 threats within the business. And again, we could actually click on those and look at the charts to see that they are indeed threats in the business. I'm going to turn my tools back on so I can navigate around. So here are some threats in the business, and we saw these being shown to us when we're using the chatbot in the demo video. So let's look at how this chatbot is working, shall we? I'll do that by using the debugger. So let's turn this debugger on. You can see that. And I'll go back to this chat bubble. And I could type it all again, but I've got a little feature here to save me doing that, where I can just click on an old one, like this one. And if I just let that run through, it's going to paste what I just said before back into this box again, which is kind of handy. So let's pretend I just typed that in again. I'll click on go. And this time I'm going to step through really slowly so you can see what's going on. So first of all, a script's running where it's just checking to see that there aren't any script parameters like a frequently asked question being run, or it's just someone trying to go home or someone trying to look at the alerts. These are basic things that don't need to fire off the chatbot. So these are halting scripts, exiting scripts, etc. and so forth. But now we're getting into the key part of the script, we're going to set some variables up front, and we're just doing a bit of cleaning, putting the message that was typed into the chat box into a variable for us so we can use it, check that it wasn't just 0, otherwise we want to get out of there. And we're going to go to the chat layout. So this is where you're probably going to spend some of your time when you're pulling this apart. I've done this so you can kind of see what's happening when we start doing a chat. So we're into this chat area. I create a new record every time there's a conversation, so you've also got history of everything that was said. I've got 219 statements in our conversation so far. So in here, we're going to do, again, just do a bit of setting a few fields that we're going to use later on to make things look nice. But basically, we're just grabbing the sentence that was just spoken. Hey Siri, show me some threats in my business. And we're looking for some keywords now. Now, we'll show you a bit more information on this one. So let me just go into edit mode and open up this particular fella here. Because what we're doing here is this is equivalent to a proper chatbot that you're going to use. So what I should say up front, I don't suggest you go off and build your own chatbot. There are a lot of free and really powerful chatbots on the marketplace, or very low costing ones, and you're better off just kind of plugging into them. But what I would say is that when you want to use these chatbots from third parties, it's good to understand what's happening. And by going through this demo file, you're going to understand it at a very fundamental level. I've done sessions at DevCon in previous years, a lot of them with Johan Hedman, where we've shown how to connect to Google's chatbot, which at the time was called API.ai, and they've changed the name to Dialogflow. So there are videos from previous DevCons where you can look at how to connect a third-party chatbot into a FileMaker solution. But today, I'm trying to dig a bit deeper and kind of building one for ourselves inside of FileMaker. Again, not so that you should go off and do that, but so that you can understand fundamentally what's happening with these chatbots, because it's not rocket science, it's not that hard. And what you're seeing here on the screen right now is an equivalent of synonyms inside of a chatbot. So when you use third-party chatbots, you can actually go off and put in which words are synonyms for another word. So in this particular case here, all of my threats together there, threat or threats, and because of my dodgy Australian accent, Siri sometimes thinks I'm saying thread. Got sick of her getting that wrong, so now I just put it as a synonym. If I'm saying thread or threads, threat or threats, I'm basically referring to a threat. Then you've got strength and strengths, weakness, weaknesses, opportunities and opportunity. So if any of these are hit, in other words, if it finds this this is this positioning function, if it finds any of these words inside the sentence, it triggers off and says, set the variable SWOT to the appropriate word. So here's where we convert the synonym. So regardless of which type of threat you've said, it puts the word threat in as that variable, or strength, or weakness, or opportunity. So this nice clean word that we're using here is the one that we're going to use later on when we do a keyword match, because I know that this is the right way to say it as far as the data that's sitting inside of my database goes. So that's an example of synonyms in these awesome third-party chatbots that you've got out there in the marketplace. All right, so we've got an example of synonyms. Let's keep moving, shall we? Let's turn off that. Don't save it. Come back to here and move right along. It did find the word threat, so it's fired off and it has set the variable SWOT to threat. You can just see that happening. There's SWOT. Actually, sorry, it's just about to appear, isn't it? Here we go. There's SWOT, and it's now just been tagged threat. Let's close that. That's done that. Now, here is probably the most important and most interesting part of how the chatbot works. What we've got here is a little function which and I'll show you the function in just a moment so you can see how it works. But what it's going to do, it sets these different fields here to word lists. And I'll just set them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I'll show you what they look like. In this first case, word list 1 is all of the single words that were used in that sentence. They're all now sitting in a field. This next one is pairing. So here are all the pairs of words that have been used. Then you've got 3 words in a row, 4 words in a row, 5 words in a row, and I stopped at 6 words in a row for this demo. So this is just, each of these fields is stringing all of the different words that were used inside of this sentence. And what we're looking for, we're going to, if we find a match of 6 words in a row from what was said in the sentence to the database, to the KPIs, and I'll show you those in just a second, then it's going to consider that quite a strong match. And it will try 6 first and then come back to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So to begin with though, we've got to pull this sentence apart and break it up into all these little pieces. So this is a list of single words, a list of double words, and so on and so forth. So it's done that. The next thing it's going to do is, this is a thing where I go looking for a measure. So if I was going to use a word like money or revenue or cost of goods sold or some kind of way of measuring money or KPIs in the business, I kind of want to pull them out separately because that might determine what kind of chart I'm going to look at or what kind of table I'm going to look at. So it has a quick look to see if it finds that. It didn't find it in that case, so we can just skip straight past it. And here's the most important part of the script where we're using these words here. It's going and looking for a match. So it says if word list 6 finds a match, in other words there's more than one match, then set the variable elements to the word list 6 primary key. So if it found any KPIs or any data there where the word list matched at the word list 6, and again I'm going to show you what those fields look like in the KPI table in just a second. If it finds a 6-word match, then it starts with that one. It doesn't bother doing 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It starts at the 6. If it doesn't find any matches where 6 words are the same, then it's down a step. What if 5 words are the same? What if 4 words are the same? So here you'll see it didn't find any 6-word matches. 5, 4, 3, 2. It will find it 1. It didn't find any 1 because this is actually going to find it in threats. So it actually didn't find any word matching from the sentence that was spoken to the actual data that's in the KPI table. Where it did find it, as we saw earlier, was up here when it found the word threat. So it's looking for all these possible things inside the sentence that might be of interest. It's just gone through and checked all of the data. And this time it's in the KPI table, but this could be in your product table or customer table. It's gone through, looked at all your customers or all your products or all your staff to see if there's any name matches. So did the person in that sentence match in any of your customers' names or any of your product names? After it's done that, it then says, if I didn't find anything, so if there was no measure, no SWOT, and no elements found, then tell the user, sorry, I didn't find any hits. But it skipped past that because it did find a SWOT. So it keeps moving and it creates a new record inside this chat because this chat's storing not only what the user says, it's also storing what Siri says back to the user. And so here we're getting Siri to say, here's what I found below regarding, and then it just repeats back the question that it heard. Hey Siri, show me some threats in my business. And a bit of tidying so that we can show it nicely. Siri saying this, what was the original question? And then it goes to this KPI layout, and here's where it does a find on any of the data. So we're now on a KPI table, which would be your product or customer table, whatever, and it's going to loop through and it's going to just go and try and find any keys that were captured earlier in the script, and it will just loop through here until it finally says I've got no more loops to do, create the find, and here is where it found 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 records that had the word threat in the SWOT field of that record. It sorts them, goes to the first one, and jumps out. Now, I will just show you something that was shown at the very end there of that chat script, which I just skipped over and should have probably shown you. It was at the very end, you would have seen that it said, if the found count was 1, then go straight to the chart. So if the found count's more than 1, it shows a list. If the found count is more than 1, goes to the list. If the found count is only 1, goes to the chart. If the found count is 0, it goes off here and says, sorry, I didn't find anything, I need more training. So this is this example of this conversational user interface. So depending on what's happening inside the conversation dictates some of the actions that you take inside of your script. And that's how you simulate this chatbot working with actions and layouts inside of your solution. I promised you I'd go and show you the KPI table. Let's just go and have a look at that. So go into admin mode, and you can see we've got, actually let me go back to the chat table. Here are those fields, word list 1 through to word list 6. In the KPI table, it's taken the name, which in this case is stored in a field called element. It's taken the name and it's done the same thing. It's split the name up into word lists 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, similar to what we saw before. I'll show you the custom function in just a moment. So that we've got a relationship here where, and you can see these are all the relationships in the solution. It's pretty straightforward. It's just a system table, KPI table, linked to a chat table, and then the chat table that we've been looking at, linked to all of these KPI tables, which would be your products or your customers, but in my case it's KPIs. And so if we go to one of these, like word list 3, what we see is word list 3 so the field in the chat table word list 3 is linked to the same named field in the KPI table, which is word list 3. And you've seen how word list 3 was created when the script ran. So when the script ran, it went and populated that field, word list 3. When I import my data, in this case the KPIs, when I import my data, I've got a custom function which populates these fields so that if there are 3 words in a row that are the same as one of the 3 words in a row in the word list, then it will find a match and resolve and give us our key identifier. So for the KPI, which is KPI table, let's have a look at the custom function that runs. File, manage, custom functions, match words, and here's the custom function which breaks a sentence or a name up into various number of word counts. So you can look through that custom function and pull it apart to work out how that works, or you can write your own if you're into it. So there you go. So that's really the kind of quick tour of how the chatbot works. But again, I expect you're going to pull it all apart yourself and try and work out how you can modify it for your own use. Hope that was helpful. Enjoy pulling the chatbot apart. In the next video, we'll look at some of the other areas of the app, again, just to give you a bit of an overview of what's going on. All right, in this video, we're going to have a bit of a general look around at the application. So you would have seen there's a video dedicated to the chatbot itself, which is probably the key part of the application, and that's the one you're going to spend most of your time on. But I thought, again, you probably just want to go and search through the app yourself, but I'll just give you a bit of a run through of the different things you'll find inside the app. So let's get the toolbars showing, open this up a little bit, and the different layouts. There's not that many. We've got the table layout, which is where the main action happens. Then you've got the chart layout. I'm going to go through this in a second because some of you have been playing around with charts. Will be sitting there wondering how I got a combo chart to work inside of FileMaker. And now with the new JavaScript features and everything that's in Claris FileMaker's latest version, you can bring in all sorts of fancy charts using JavaScript. But this particular one has been built using good old-fashioned FileMaker charts. So just using standard FileMaker charts, I've created this combination chart. And if you've spent time using charts, struggling with getting a combination chart working, you may be interested to see how I did that. So I'll show you a little bit about that. And then we've got the chat layout, which is really just a configuration one, and I've already shown that in other videos, so you can see how that one works. And then the KPI table, this is really the main table of data that's in your solution. So again, this particular solution that I've used for the demo is based on key performance indicators, and what we've got here are some standard FileMaker fields, so you've got numbers and text all the way through. But at the right here, there are some that are a little bit different to what you would normally see. These are arrays, so in other words, I've got a list. In this case, it's a very straightforward one. Lists all showing 100. If we come out here though, you can see that this is a list 115, 114, 114. And what's happening there is these numbers are being delimited by a pipe character. And the reason for having these arrays is for charting, which I'm now going to show you. So if I go into the chart section, this is the combo chart that we see. If I go into layout mode, you can see it's a lot smaller. That's so that it fits and works on an iPhone screen. And then it's been set up so that it stretches when you see it on bigger layouts like this one. The main way I did the combo chart was really just to create 3 separate charts. I created a line chart, an area chart, and a column chart. And for each one I had a transparent background, and I'll just show you these one at a time. So let's hide all other objects except the line chart, double click on it. And we can see there's only really 2 lines. There's the actuals and there's the forecast. And what we're in the data source here, we've selected just the current record. So we're just looking at one record at a time. And if we look at the calculation, it goes into that array that we saw before, and it just replaces the pipe character, which is the delimiter, with a return symbol. So we go from having a whole bunch of numbers all in one cell or one field, and this one just stretches them out to be a long list of numbers, which is exactly what the charting tool needs to see, is a list of numbers. And so that's how I got the actual and the forecast line into the solution. And then if I look at the column one next, hold all other objects, open this one up. Similar theory. This isn't a great example. Let's see if we can look at the chart setup again. We'll look at, let's say, actuals, go to the calculation, exactly the same kind of thing. Although this time it's looking for that button, show supply. So if we cancel out of here and go into browse mode and click on show supply, now all the supply is being shown. Go back to layout mode, then look at this particular one. We can see that here's all of our supply columns. So instead of lines, we're using columns, and that's how I did the combination. And then the background is just transparent so that they show through. To get this to work, the one really tricky part that took a little bit of working out was the y-axis. So I'm dynamically setting the y-axis so they all line up with each other. And the way I'm doing that is by saying find the minimum value of all of those different areas. So I'm looking at supply, demand, inventory, supply forecast, demand forecast, inventory forecast. So it goes through and looks at all of those, finds the minimum number, multiplies it by 1.1 just to lift it up a bit so the y-axis has a good minimum, and then maximum is exactly the same, but instead of going for a minimum, this time it says max value, and it goes through that list and finds the max value. So the beauty of doing this is when you've got these charts overlaying each other, I'll go to the area chart next, what you see is the same y-axis being used for all of them, and there's the two area charts, the actuals again and forecast, so that when you go into browse mode, let's unhide everything, go into browse mode, and there you have it, the three charts all being overlaid on top of each other, giving us this feeling of a combination chart. And that's how I managed to get the chart to work. So that's the chart layout. We've talked about the KPI layout, which is really just where the raw data is. And finally, it's just the table layout. And again, this is where most of the action occurs. So there's navigation buttons down the bottom. I'll turn the debugger on as I click them. Home is the most straightforward one. It just says if the script parameter is home, or if we run this script without any parameters, then it'll first go and run the little chat script. Let's go and have a quick look at that. And it's just saying, this is this one we saw earlier. If it's something simple like home, it goes to the chat layout, creates a new record, and just says, you are on the home screen. So it's kind of giving you that feeling that you still have a chatbot in the background. It X's that, goes to the table, shows all the records, and then sorts them however you had them sorted in your raw data. And that's what the home button does. This next button's a lot more straightforward. We're here on demo code proprietary limits, we're on the whole company. So this is the KPI representing the whole company in this demo, or just demo data. Click on the chart button, and it just says, oh, go to the chart layout. So now I'm seeing the chart for that particular item. Click on the table button, and I go back to seeing the table. This alert button is similar to asking Siri to show you threats, but it does it just in one button click. This is something you're often going to do. You're often going to go and look at what your biggest threats are, and each day try and knock them over. So I put it into a button at the bottom here. So it says, if this is alert, go to the table KPI, do a find, so it's only finding threats, sort them, go to the first one, and again, goes into this little chat area and just stamps a sentence that's relevant to performing that kind of action. So this is this kind of integrating a chatbot with a conversational user interface, and there you have your alerts. You've seen how the chat button works already. All I've done there is I've used a portal to show the chat history, and one of the things I found really helpful is, so I don't have to keep typing things over again, if I've got a frequently asked question, I could just scroll down. Let's see if I've got something further deeper down here. Small clear widget, click on that, puts it in there, click on go, and it finds me the small clear widget. So this is just kind of like this chat area, and in other versions I've got different functions, whether I want to do it by voice or by text, or just have a nice long list of frequently asked questions in a nice clean format. And this is just the config area at the end. It's where you can close the app, toggle menus, or import KPIs. You can actually import your own KPIs. So if I look at the script, it's very straightforward. It's the refresh button, goes to KPI, kills all the KPIs that are there, and then imports them from an Excel worksheet in this particular case, but you can bring your KPIs in from anywhere, and then it just goes and navigates back to home again. So this is just a general overview of how the app works. That's encasing the chatbot, and you've had a little bit more information on how the combination chart worked, in case that was something you might have been curious about. That's it for this general overview video of how this app works. So I wanted to delve a little bit deeper into some of the issues that companies are facing in managing supply and demand, but more importantly, predicting supply and demand. So what you see on the chart here is sales. These could be actual sales orders by month. We could very easily add supply to that. And what we see if we take the difference, so add supply, take away demand, is the inventory changing month on month. Now we can draw a straight trend line through that, which is kind of a way of saying we're going to do a forecast of that demand. And we can see that the supply is just slightly lower than the average demand that's in the forecast. So it makes sense that over time we will eat into our stock, and at some point we'll go out of stock. And that's what that's showing us right there. Interestingly, we can have this red line, which is like a minimum stock level that we should have. And this would be suggesting that we need to have sales for 1 month ready by the end of the month before. But it's more than just having the sales ready. You also need to cover the variability of the forecast. You know your forecast is not going to be right. So for those months where you sell more than you expected, you need a little bit more stock. You can see that red line would cover us for all of our sales except for just that once. So there was one time when we would have sold more than that minimum stock. So that's kind of like very much a minimum level we would like to maintain to feel safe that we're not going to go out of stock. We could add another line, which is like our ideal stock. And you can see if we had our ideal stock, we would never have gone out of stock, not once in the past 3 years. And then we can add another line, which is kind of like our maximum stock. And really there'd be no point in having more stock than that orange line, because it's very unlikely, based on the demand we're seeing on this particular chart, that we're going to sell more than that orange line. So you can kind of think of these as guide rails, your upper and lower tolerances for how much stock you should have. And indeed, this can work in service-based companies too, where you're not actually just trying to look at supply and demand of physical products. You're trying to plan out the work that your staff are going to do, and instead of it being a factory or purchasing products from suppliers, your supply is actually a number of hours or billable hours that your staff can do. So this same approach can certainly work for companies that are selling services. It's more about capacity and utilization, but the theory is very similar. You can have seasonality to your demand, and you can I've even seen some consulting firms who kind of count the number of minutes that are billed as a type of inventory indeed, and that's how they treat it. So you can use this approach for both companies selling products and services. Either way, as I mentioned, you can be approaching something along the lines of what we're seeing now, this seasonal demand, where you've got these clear peaks around Christmas time every year. So the forecast, the dashed blue line there, is predicting those peaks as well, and it's suggesting we should have stock before the peaks, which kind of makes sense. This is this offset of at least a month, and you can see the lines are very close together. That's because the demand here is following that path. In this next example, we've got consistent supply, so we're not changing our supply, but we realize we don't want to go out of stock again, so we double the supply, so work 2 shifts, let's say. This might look a bit silly to you, but if you actually reduce the amount of visibility you see in the future, you can see that this plan here doesn't look that bad. If you're an exec and it's selling an A-class product and you're sick of it going out of stock every year, you're losing sales, you're losing customers to your competitors, you say to your supply team, make sure I do not go out of stock this year. I really hate going out of stock. I'm over it. You'll all lose your job if we go out of stock again. So you build this kind of buffer of stock. If you only look forward 1 year, it kind of almost looks quite nice. It's not till you stretch it out and look forward a second year that you realize if this item went unchecked, then you'll end up with way too much stock and you're wasting a lot of money tying up a lot of your assets and a lot of your capital in stock that isn't required. What you see now is really a preferred approach, and this is what they refer to when I talk about flexible manufacturing or flexible supply chains. Instead of producing the same every month, what if you allowed yourself to modify the output for this particular item? Then what you would see is that you don't have to actually produce anything for a few months. So you'd keep selling but not produce anything. Then you'd produce it just before you need it, and you produce the right amount. You can see from the bright blue area chart there that we have just the right of stock in the peaks when we need it, and we're not wasting money and storing stock in a warehouse when we don't need it, nor are we going out of stock. And what that is doing is it's basically just following the target line for the stock levels. And if you have in typical cases, you'd have a much higher variable demand, so your spread for those tolerances would be a lot greater. But this is just back to a normal product. This is the kind of thing you'd expect. In a lot of companies, you see inventory, as you see on the chart now, where at some point in time you realize you're a bit short on stock, you're kind of too close to that red line. So you spend a couple of months where you work, overtime or back shifts or get contractors, and you produce a bulk of stock to get you ahead of it, and that's a great way of doing it. As you can see here, it's a little bit higher than it needs to be, but that's okay, because what you can do is then just ease it back. So you can just produce a little bit less on average each month than what you need, and get your stock levels back in control without losing our stocks. Now, here's what we're seeing a little bit more commonly now, thanks to this COVID bump that we've got. Now, this example here might be something where we're selling toilet paper or hand sanitizer, where in March, it was the highest sales the company's ever seen for that particular product. And you might have even been lucky enough to have some supply problems right at the same time, which we saw a lot of. So very quickly, you went straight out of stock. You went hard on your suppliers trying to get more stuff in, but everyone was doing the same thing. So you struggled to get it back in. People were still placing orders because they were desperately wanting their toilet paper or whatever it is they needed. And at some point, maybe around May or June, you finally get supply. But as you can see from this, that supply barely covers the back orders that you've got. And you've still got this issue of facing immense amounts of out of stock. And this is where some companies were really struggling to bounce back. The other thing you need to watch out in these situations is this peak that happened in March can affect your forecast. It can give you an unlikely high forecast. So in many cases, what we're doing is adjusting that spike out so that the forecast we've got sees that as an outlier or as a one-off, which gets us back to forecasting what we expect. And then you might even need to do something with the trough that happens after the peak as well. So you kind of have to really handle the months around the COVID. In this next example, this is something unfortunately we're seeing fairly commonly as well, which is a real problem for most companies actually, and that's where you've got the dive in March. So there is no peak, it just goes straight to a dive, and maybe your sales are coming back, but they're nowhere near as strong as they were before COVID. So you obviously got a whole bunch of resources equipped to produce a lot more than you need. This is where we're seeing a lot of companies are going down to 4-day weeks and 80% pay, etc., to try and keep the head above water. Now, one of the issues with this is, again, back to the forecasting, is that the forecast is going to probably be unfavorable here. It's going to be a bit lower than what it should be because it sees these dips towards the end and think it's actually the item that's dying when in fact, it's the market that's taken a dive. Now, the point of all these examples is not that any of these would specifically match what's happening in your organization. It's really just to show you how helpful it is to have visibility of these things. And even if you're just whipping things up fairly quickly in Claris FileMaker or in Excel or in a combination of both to try and get some visibility on this, it's when you then link all of that to some kind of app like the one I showed earlier, which can be mobile, so that on a daily basis you can bring people's attention to the most critical things in the business that need to be addressed. And it's almost, for very many businesses, it's really back to basics. And therefore, it's where a workplace innovation tool like Claris is required, because as some of my clients have been talking about, it feels like you're fixing the plane while it's in the air. You just don't have time to do a 6-month project of implementing new systems. It is a whole new world. It's unprecedented, and you need to build solutions quickly. And I feel like the key thing is to get visibility, not of what's happened in the past, but what's going to happen in the next few days, weeks, and months. And I think Claris can certainly help you with that. And I'm hoping that some of the stuff you saw in the videos today has given you a few ideas, a few tips on how you can do that for either your business or for your clients' businesses. So that's it. I just wanted to dig a bit deeper into the COVID supply and demand situation, and I really hope that this has helped you. Well, we're at that end of the video session. We're in the final stages. What I'd like to do is first thank you for watching these videos and in fact for sticking it out right to the end. What I've got here is a bit of a summary, but I think more importantly, next steps or where you might want to head, depending on your level of appetite to engage in something like a chatbot or a conversational user interface, or indeed, looking at supply and demand charts and KPIs. So let's just wrap up. Today, we looked at how you can talk to Siri about your data inside of your Claris FileMaker solution. Now, whether that's an app or indeed an Excel spreadsheet. So you can talk to people and say, hey, you want to be able to talk to Siri about the data in your Excel spreadsheet? I can help you with that. You just get them to transfer the data from Excel into a mobile app using FileMaker Go, and away you go. You can be talking to Siri about data inside the Excel spreadsheet. I think when you think of it in that context, the future of workplace innovation becomes very exciting. We've got a low-code application that can scale up to just about anything because you can plug it in to so many different things using Claris Connect through APIs. You can build through Core ML, machine learning right into it. You can run it natively. There's just so much you can do. But I think starting out by helping users just understand that there's a whole different way they can interact with their data, I think is very exciting and should get people interested in your skills and what you can do with Claris to help them out. In previous DevCon sessions, I've talked at great length about how Claris can be used as an entire BI stack. I still maintain that, certainly for small to medium-sized companies. There is no doubt in my mind, Claris is a great BI tool. When you get to larger enterprises, there are other tools that probably are better for large-scale data when you're into the trillions or billions of records. But even then, you can plug Claris in as an AI tool. And one of the things about this workplace innovation platform, the idea that you can create things so quickly, means you can use it as a bit of a translator. In other words, you can kind of ease executives and managers into AI bit by bit. You can build solutions within just a few days and show them how they can be chatting to Siri or some other digital assistant about their business, and very quickly they begin to understand the impacts this can have. I think the fact that you can build production level chatbots into Claris is super exciting, whether that be plugging in a third party or building your own and leveraging things like Core ML, or indeed the different things through APIs and Claris Connect. I do certainly believe that you can run your entire business, or at least manage your entire business through one app, just with one business app. It's not ideal, of course, for doing enterprise resource planning transactions. It's not about doing invoicing and orders all in one system. It is about, however, being able to manage information. And there's some really cool things you can do with things like key performance indicators, where you can basically have in the palm of your hand a key performance indicator for every single aspect of your business: the products, the customers, employees, processes, just about everything. In previous DevCons, especially with sessions that I've shared with Johan Hedman, we've looked at face recognition, image recognition, and there was a really fun one we did on object counting. So you could just take a photo of thousands or even millions of objects, like steel rolls in a warehouse or people at a game, and AI will count that up for you in a few seconds. So there's some really cool stuff you can do, and I think we're getting close to the point now where you can create, like a seamless experience where you're not even sure what part of it is AI, what part is machine learning, and what part is just low code that was whipped up the day before using, Claris FileMaker. So it's exciting times. Really enjoying using the tool, and when you plug that final piece in with machine learning, where you can use it to categorize things, cluster things automatically for you. It takes a lot of the legwork out, takes a lot of the boring work away from us, so we can do the exciting stuff of showing off to customers just how cool the solutions are that we can make using Claris. So that's it from me. I hope you've got something out of this. Again, I encourage you to contact me. I really do like chatting to people about this stuff, whether it be in relation to Siri and chatbots, or indeed if you're struggling with supply and demand challenges thanks to COVID. Just give me a call, and if there's any way I can help you, I'd love to. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.